Welcome to LieckMinded, where I conspire to inspire you. On today's episode, you are going to learn how to make vintage pincushions. If you're anything like me and you like to sew, you're completely bored with the traditional tomato pincushion. This is an example of a true antique shoe pincushion, and it is my source for my inspiration today. The first step in creating is a clean workspace. Much better. Here's everything you're going to need to create your vintage pincushion. I like to start with a shoe, in this case, some foam, chair cushion foam, some durable glue, a pair of scissors, beautiful ones if you have them, pearl-headed pins, and a fabric of your choice that has stretch to it. And for every like-minded project, never forget your PIP: passion, imagination, and patience. You can make pincushions out of virtually anything miniature that has a small opening in the top. I'm choosing shoes because of my love of shoes, but you can choose anything else that you like. As you can see, I've amassed quite a collection, and it's all because of an accidental influencer. Like many good stories, this one starts with a prince and a princess. In the 18th century, the Princess of Prussia married the Duke of York. She wasn't exactly easy on the eyes, so the media focused on her tiny, petite feet. The prince was obsessed with her tiny feet and had tiny, custom-made shoes made by the royal shoemaker, and the media went crazy and the public ensued, and they became obsessed with these tiny shoes made of porcelain and metal, which they would give as gifts to their friends and family as a token of gratitude, good luck, and goodwill. They were used to hold candy, jewelry, and they were also made into pincushions. Our first step is going to be cutting and shaping our foam. The first thing that you want to do is shape your piece of foam to fit the size of the shoe or the piece that you're working on. This one is definitely not the size that I want for mine, unless I was a unicorn. I like to work with a little pair of scissors because I'm going to cut this end off. You can really work in, you kind of want to sculpt it like that in little kind of movements. And you want to create, the goal is to create sort of a domed shape on the top because you want that rounded effect on the top for your fabric to go over. So just little bits, you're just kind of like treating your scissors like a knife that you're carving, really carving that shape out. This is all about free forming it, so you can use your little scraps to stick into your shoe and kind of fill some of that empty space. Just kind of fill in that toe area where it's not really going to matter, and you can use up all these scraps to do it. Shove it in there. You kind of want to test the shape. I mean, this isn't really, it doesn't look like it would be the shape, but because it's so flexible, you can really just kind of shove it into the space and kind of get a feel for, is that big enough? Is it too big? And then you can make your adjustments with your scissors accordingly. Like I can cut this little corner off if I want. But keep in mind that when your fabric goes over it, it's going to help shape it too. So you really just want to have enough of that loftiness sticking out of the shoe so that you see it beyond the edge of the shoe. So just as a reminder of how the shoe should look when it's all done in terms of the shape, you want to see that curved shape on the shoe so that the pins really make a statement when they stick into it. So now that I pretty much have the shape that I'm looking for, you can see the silhouette here, that arched shape, that's what you want to get, we can talk fabric. Now remember, to be truly like-minded, you want to pay attention to those subtle nuances about things like fabric choice and color. I could have chosen a primary color like red or even black, but I chose this really beautiful mint green shade of stretch velvet. The stretch is important because it's going to make your job a lot easier. So we've got our foam whittled down and shaped, and we have our fabric selected. The next thing you want to do is cut your fabric to the size that covers your foam appropriately. So we got our fabric cut to size, and we want to make sure that it fits in there really nice and snug and covers our foam. So we want to kind of like stuff it in there without the glue first as like a kind of trial run. Get it all in there like that. Just kind of, this is not the time to be a perfectionist. Just kind of make sure it covers everything and it still keeps that shape that you want. And that's looking pretty good for me. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this in. So we say in fashion, the fitting is done, and now we're ready to glue in our fabric piece. And the way we do that is to run our glue right around the edges of the shoe only, on the inside of that shoe. And then we put our fabric in place like we did in the fitting. Now toothpicks are optional for this step, but I just find it a little bit easier to get control of my adhesive by using a toothpick. And just go all the way around. It's okay if you get it on the foam. The glue's in, and now it's our fabric's turn to go right over the top of that like we did in the fitting. It's the exact same step, but now this is the real deal. And you want to make sure that you really get that fabric in. Precise, take your time, there's no rush. Just kind of get it to look the way you want. I'll wiggle that around. It's all, I go by feel. And just kind of use something like a small scissor or a popsicle stick or whatever you got. The handle of a brush. So I'm just doing my final adjustments on my shoe pin cushion because I'm a perfectionist. And if you're like-minded, you are too. Making sure that it's as seamless as possible. I kind of like that little bit of like, there's some folds, little pleats that kind of happen, and that's okay. Because if you see in my vintage one, they have them too. Here along the edges, there's little bits of, it's not super tight, but it depends on what you like. I'm trying to get it right up to the edges and making sure that fabric is nice and snug in there, because when pins push in there, you want it to be as kind of solid as possible, not too squishy. So that's why it's important to pack enough foam in there before your fabric goes on, because if it's too soft and squishy, then it won't be as easy to push pins into. So when it comes to pins, I favor the pearl-headed pins. You can put whatever pins you like, but if you're like-minded, which you should be if you're watching the show, you will choose the pearl-headed pins too, and they come in lots of colors. Pastel primarily, which makes sense with vintage. I favor the pearl, I favor the pink, and there's a nice mint color too that I like. So I'm going to use the pearl ones today. There's only one thing left to do. Pin it. And I like to make it beautiful. And I'm using 2 different lengths and sizes of pins. You can mix together the pinks and the mints and the pearls. You can do whatever you want, but keep it in those vintage tones. And this, my friends, will make your sewing experience a lot prettier. Now, you have to admit that this is much prettier than a tomato. I hope you've all learned something and feel inspired. And I hope that your pin cushions are the pinnacle of success. And I'd like to see what you've created, so please tag me on all your social media at LieckMinded. And remember, nothing's off limits when you're like-minded.